At first, I'm using a graphite pencil and I'm positioning the subject on my page. I make sure I leave enough space around the hairline so that the figure ends up having a good position in the page. I draw guidelines to anchor the facial features, and I always start with the mouth. When positioning the eyes, I'm starting off with hashing out the shadows. This helps me getting the proportions right. So I'm always looking at the darkest shades on the face and figuring out the proportions from there. Once I have the facial features established, I move on to hashing out larger areas of the image, for example, the hair. After laying down a base coat of graphite, I continue and I insist on the darkest ridges of the shade of the hair, and I focus on identifying the hidden shapes the shadows make within the hair. Once I'm satisfied with my graphite layer, I pick up my charcoal pen and start making my marks in the key features of the face, which are actually the most important: the eyes, nose, mouth, and chin, because those are the identifiers of the face. The proportions are dictated by these, the location of these elements, the distance of the eyes, relationship of the distance of the eyes to the nose, to the face, to the chin. So these elements, I make them with charcoal to highlight them, and also to make sure that this gives the darkest dark of the portrait. The reason why I'm always starting with the mouth is because I find it less intimidating and much easier to draw, since it starts off from just a one level line, as opposed to the eye line, which is contains two elements. So it's always easier to mess up the direction of the eyes and place one eye much higher or much lower than the other one, and messing up the proportion and the likeness. So I start with the mouth, then I plot out the distance from the mouth to the nose, also the wideness of the mouth compared to the wideness of the nose. Then I move higher up, and I consider the length between the chin and the start of the nose, and measure how high that goes into the length of the nose. Usually the chin to nose is also the nose to the bridge of the eyebrows, plus or minus, depending on the person's face features, of course. I check the proportions of the face on a vertical line as well as on a horizontal line, and make sure that I notice the relationship between the objects. So sometimes the width of the nose is equal to the width of the eye, and if that's correct, I check that. Or if that relation is a bit different, then I make sure I notice that and place it correctly in my drawing. On a vertical axis, I check out the relation between the pupils and the corners of the mouth. Also the relation between the width of the nose and the alignment with the teeth. Then on a horizontal axis, I look at the relation between the earlobe and the nose. Usually when I make mistakes in my drawings is because I focus too much on one particular face feature, and then it gets out of proportion compared to the rest of the image. So the eyes are most likely the ones to generate the mistakes most often. Because in general, eyes are the most powerful facial feature. When you are face to face with someone, when you look them in the eyes, and that's where the non-verbal communication takes place, and it's common to focus excessively on details on the pupil, for example, where the light shines, or also on the number of eyelashes. And if I overdraw those details, it might also end up in having an overall size of the eye which is too large compared to the face. So that's why I stopped focusing on the eyes, and I gain courage with my portrait drawings by starting off with the mouth. That's more friendly for me, a more friendly feature to draw, and it's easier to get right. Is not so mesmerizing as the eyes. Drawing hair is the most relaxing part of a portrait because hair is naturally messy and there's less room for getting things wrong because the hair strands are naturally messy, so it's not such a precise location. If I render one hair strand in a particular location and I make it too obvious or I make it too dark, it's less likely that one stroke is going to mess up my overall portrait likeness. So with drawing the hair strands, I get more courageous and more relaxed with my mark making, and that makes it look more artistic and expressive. It's like I'm in competition with myself to make a better drawing each time with each attempt. And hair is my best friend. There are millions of individual hair strands, and each hair strand that I attempt to draw is my friend. It's not going to impact the likeness as drastically as getting wrong one strand of hair is not as critical as getting wrong the location of one eye. So when I draw hair, I have the impression that I am sculpting, and the areas in which I place the most color, so the darkest charcoal, are actually the areas that naturally get the least amount of light. And of course, for the places with highlights in the hair, I sometimes need to use an eraser to remove some of the material that I have placed, just to make sure that the relationship between dark areas and light areas still match with my reference photo. I started drawing ever since I remember, probably 3 years old, when I first grabbed pencils and paper, and I was drawn to this process. I could never stop drawing, even when I'm doing other activities during the day. My mind is constantly drawing and painting and thinking about what else I could create. And, my brain is playing out scenarios of images that I could possibly make that I didn't try yet to do. So, drawing is a safe space for me, and I can imagine why it's also therapeutic for everyone. It's even therapeutic to watch. I remember being forever inspired by drawing and portrait drawing when I was a child, and I was walking on there was a seashore nearby, and there was a portrait artist which was selling portraits, and he was actually making portraits from life for live customers that sat down in front of him, and he just started drawing them. And as soon as I saw that person doing that, I could not move, or I lost interest in anything else. I just wanted to really understand how can a human hand place on a piece of paper the image that he sees in front of him, and also manage to get a quite a good likeness. That was quite fascinating to me, and that's one childhood memory that I constantly go to. And I have heard lots of opinions about how drawing is not a talent, it's an acquired skill if you're using the right techniques. I don't really mind if it is a talent or if it isn't. Bottom line is, for me, drawing is pure happiness. Of course, it's also a patience game, because it took me a lot of years to practice and be patient with myself and my progress, and never give up. Because, of course, years ago my drawings were not as good as they are today, and hopefully years from now they're going to be better. Anyway, the joy of living this process is the same. It's always the same, so that's important to me. In my early years, lots of my drawings were off. The proportions were off. They looked skewed, and for a long time I didn't understand why my drawings did not resemble as much the original person, until I came across an important and very useful technical detail. For example, the orientation of the paper in front of your eyes has a great impact on your outcome of the drawing. So when my drawings came out skewed, which means my face, my drawings were much more elongated than the real person's face. So if I was drawing a person with a round face, my drawing would have turned out an oval. So the trick is, which was, I tested it, I confirmed, total game changer, is to draw on a slanted table, or just draw on your knees, just to make sure that the angle of the paper makes a right 90 degrees angle with your eyesight. So your face is supposed to look straight on to the surface of the drawing. So this angle is, of course, not a right angle. It's not 90 degrees if you are drawing at a normal horizontal table. Just think about geometry. So if you sit down at a normal horizontal table, then the angle between your eyesight and the paper is much, well, what's the name? Smaller than 90 degrees. It's a sharper angle. And that actually impacted all of my previous drawings. And I'm so grateful when I came across this information. And of course, I noticed the artist, the portraiteur, who was doing portraits for people who were walking on the street. He was actually, I don't know, sitting down, and his paper was indeed perpendicular to his eyesight. So he was not sitting at a coffee table and doing portraits. He was using his paper at an angle, at a 90-degree angle compared to his eyesight. That's amazing. So this is confirmation that indeed information and technical methods do really improve your process of drawing. And also, speaking about the techniques, another thing, if you stretch your arm into the air and hold a pencil or something, the idea of using this method for getting the right proportions from your reference photo or from your live model onto the paper is, first of all, with my stretched out hand holding a pencil, I close one of my eyes and try to look exactly what length of a facial feature, let's say the eye. So I am going to cover the whole pencil except the tip of the pencil, which would be the same length as the length of the eye, and then compare it to another facial feature from the original model or reference image. So probably the distance between the two eyes is equal to the length of one eye. And I have confirmed that with my hand in the air holding pencil. And then I lower my hand and the pencil on the drawing paper, and of course the distance is going to be different, but the proportions are the same. So I measure with the pencil how long is the eye on my pencil length on the paper, place my hand to fix that distance, and then place the pencil in between the eyes to make sure that the proportion would be right. So this is another tool which I think it's amazing, very natural, very handy, and this process also works, and it worked for me. I tried it. I am very impressed and excited to have come it across. Of course, at the end, I sign my name on the illustration as clear as possible, because I want it to be legible and to show that my work has achieved completion. And of course, I'm proud of it. I am Anna Stelea and I create art. If you'd like to support my channel, click the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.